Hey, thanks for tuning in to Twang and Bang. If you're like me, you've got a firearm for every occasion. You've taken countless classes on how to use them. You stockpile ammunition for every caliber you own. You might have body armor for yourself and your entire family. You've got a bug out plan and a go bag. You've got a bug in plan and a get home bag, and on and on. Thankfully, the chance that we'll be using any of that is really, really low. We are much more likely to save a life using one of these than using one of these. This is the AR-500 Armor QD IFAK. Stands for Quick Deployable Individual First Aid Kit. And even though it looks like every other IFAK that's on the market, its simple outward appearance actually hides a very cool design that gives you access to what you want, when you want it, without the pack getting in the way of you putting it to use. Yes, it comes filled with a lot of go fast medical goodies, but it's the pack itself that makes this kit stand out. And that's why it's coming up next on Twang and Bang. The coolest features of the QD IFAK are most easily demonstrated with it attached to something like this new Arena plate carrier. It's 100% made in the US and it is super comfy. This is a blood stopping kit, and when you come up on bloody trauma, the first thing you're going to want to do is glove up. It's easy enough to access your gloves. You just pop that front flap and there they are. I'm gloving up and I come up to the casualty and I can't really assess them with all their gear and clothes on. First tool I'll probably end up using are the shears. They're right there. I didn't have to open the pack for either of those. It's still up nice close against my body. Even if I don't use my shears and I go straight to my tourniquet, it's right there. It's retained by an elastic loop on the inside, but I can easily get the tourniquet out of the pack without having to open it up. Whew, I got the tourniquet in place. I'm sweating to death, which I really would be if I was doing something like this. I want to get to the rest of the pack. I'm going to hold the red handle against my body, grab the black handle, and I'm just going to pull out, and now it's in its tri-fold configuration. And I can leave it like that and get at the different things I need as I go, and it'll still stay pretty close to me, and it's easy enough to tighten back up just by flipping it up and closing that top flap. If I want a little bit more room to work with, I can pull a little bit more, and now it's nice and flat just like that. And I can even tear it all the way off my body, and there you go. I can set that down next to my patient and finish up what I need to do. Still sweating. I probably shouldn't have tried to reset this with it on my body, but I did. It's fully reset the way it would be, just me walking around. But now, instead of me wanting to deploy it on my body and use it for myself, I want to hand it to somebody else to use. Super easy. That's where you just grab the red handle, tear away, and there you go, buddy. Take this, get to work. This might be on my back, and my buddy will rip it off and use it for me. The only thing that you give up in doing that would be the items that you have stored on the anchor panel. But they're still easy for somebody to come up and grab off of you if they needed them. That's why I really like this pack. It's much more than just a way to keep your standard blowout kit items on your person. Its design ensures that you can get at what you want when you need it without blowing out your blowout kit all over the place. And here's how it pulls that off. First of all, the pack is made of 1000D Cordura, and it's available in black, coyote, OD green, and multicam. The outside of the pack has 2 rows of MOLLE and a Velcro patch panel on the front, 3 loops on each side to attach additional tourniquets, and a full MOLLE panel with 2 Fight Light Malice clips included for attaching to your plate carrier, your range bag, or whatever. As with AR-500 Armor's plate carriers, all webbing and stress points are bar tacked for extra strength. You just aren't going to pull this apart except where it's designed to be pulled apart. The shears are stored tucked into the back of the pack, retained by a Velcro retention tab, just like you'd find on a nylon pistol holster. With it off my body, you can more easily see that the pack has 2 grab handles. The black one is easiest to get to because that's how you open the pack to access its contents. The red one is intentionally tucked back more out of the way because that's what you grab to tear the pack off of the anchor panel. So yes, this is held in place by 2 vertical strips of Velcro, but keep in mind that when the pack is closed up, that's not the only thing keeping it on your plate carrier, your bag, or whatever. So this isn't going to just rip off when you're trying to use it. You really have to intentionally grab it, use that red handle to take it off of your body. From there, popping that top Velcro opens it into its tri-fold configuration. I'll just flip it over so you can see, and then you just pull more, and that separates those two strips of Velcro so that it can lay out flat. I'm gonna stick this back together for this next part of the video. What you see here in the pack itself, these two malice clips and the shears are what comes standard in the pack. You get your choice between 3 tourniquets though. For the base price, you get a SWAT-T like this. But for just $14 more, you get your choice of a cat or a soft T. I want to quickly point out that neither this nor this are new issue. I've had this as my EDC tourniquet for a while, and this has been in a range bag of mine for a couple of years. So if they don't look like the new issue of these two types of tourniquets, it's because they aren't. The cat is what AR500 Armor included with this kit for me to do the video. It's obviously new issue. It is the real deal. In fact, you're gonna get new issue whatever you get in an AR500 Armor IFAK of any kind, and you're not gonna get any Chinese knockoff garbage. Everything is the real deal. Any of the 3 tourniquets will work well for applying to someone else. The SWAT-T is a bit more challenging to self-apply to an arm than I like, however. So I recommend spending the extra $14 to get either the soft T or the cat. Both of these are highly respected combat and first responder proven tourniquets, but they each come with pluses and minuses. Many prefer the soft T for applying to someone else, myself included, because of its hook and tab. You don't have to worry about feeding the strap through a buckle when you're trying to wrap this around somebody else's limb. You just unclip it, wrap it around the limb, snap it in place, and then cinch down. That's actually a really handy feature for applying to somebody else, maybe even your own leg. However, it's got this locking tri-glide that requires 2 hands to release if you want to make the strap longer while applying it. Sure, you're going to have this nice and open when you start out, but say it slips out of position as you're cinching it down and you need to reposition it above the wound. You might need to get some of that slack back to get it back over the area of the limb you want to put it. This tri-glide makes that a 2-handed deal. The tri-glide also creates a lot of friction on the strap when you're tightening it. And again, that can create a few challenges for applying it one-handed. I'm going to do my best showing on this video with just my forearm, but I am pulling as hard as I can and it's not cinching down. So you kind of have to ratchet as you go. And even there, I'm pulling as hard as I can and it's not locking down like I would want. So if I start to cam it over, the tourniquet starts to spin on my arm. That I don't like. One more thing that makes this a little difficult to self-apply. So now I got this cinched down the way I want, and the windlass retention, when I get that tight enough, now I've got to, with one hand, and this might have slipped into an awkward place for me to reach. That's hard. That's hard to do. So that's why I prefer the cat tourniquet for putting on myself than the soft T. The cat, however, you don't need to use the buckle as a locking buckle. You can just feed it through one side, and then you just put the limb through and crank it down. Way easier. Then with the windlass, same thing. I find it a lot easier because all you have to do is just slap it in that slot, take that Velcro over, and it's retained. Much easier to do in a stressful situation, maybe you're all covered in blood, than using the soft T. But I'm definitely not going to argue with anybody that has experience putting these on somebody else or themselves in a stressful situation. I've never had to do that, but I'm not picking the Cat T simply because I like it. This is the one that the people that I know with the most experience say is an easier thing to do for yourself. The big drawback with the Cat is when you need to take the strap out of the buckle to feed it around a limb, the tail of the strap has a nice red identifier on it and there's a stiffener in it, but still you have to find that slot, you have to feed it in, and your hands might be bloody, this might be bloody, your patient might be moving around a whole lot. That's a lot more difficult than just using this hook and tab system on the soft T. That's the big difference there. There are actually quite a few other differences between the two that represent potential failure points for each of them, but there are plenty of videos out there that can help explain them to you. I have never used any of these except in training, so I am not qualified to judge, but interestingly enough, the guys I know who have a lot of experience applying tourniquets most often say they don't have a preference between the SWAT-T or the cat. They both work really well. If you want to be able to get your cat out as fast as I showed at the beginning of the video, you do need to pay a little bit more attention putting it away than you might in other kits. You have it all folded up like they show in the instructions. There's nothing different about that. But what you do need to make sure is that when you put it in, it stays all streamlined from the elastic retainer on back, and you want to make sure that the windlass retainer is facing the flap that you're going to want to open to get to it. Since I wear this on my left side, this is the front flap. This is what I open up, and it's right there. It pulls out just like that. Coming back to the left side of the bag, this is where the glove retention loop is. Underneath that is a retainer for a little bit of medical tape. On this side, they have a loop with nothing in it from AR500 Armor, but that's where I put my little golf Sharpie. You can see that it's a regular Sharpie, it's just not as long, because hopefully you're not going to run out of ink in your kit. And the nice thing about Sharpies versus pens is that they will not only write on your tourniquet, they'll write on your glove very easily, they'll write on your own skin if you want to take notes, they'll write on the skin of your patient really easily. So that doesn't come with the kit, but they're like $2 a piece. I'll put a link in the video description where you can get those. At the top, there's also an unused loop, and for that, I made a custom sized roll of duct tape, and I leave a little bit of a tab folded over to make it easy to deploy, and I just put that in there. This kit comes with a pair of Fox Seal chest seals made by the same company that makes cell locks. Like most chest seals, the Fox Seal chest seals come in a pair because you're going to need two for a through and through injury. The makers of Fox Seal claim their seals are superior to others in their ability to stick on dirty, hairy, and wet skin. They're also supposedly less likely to form creases when rolled or bent that will affect their seal on a patient than other brands. I'm not qualified to comment on either of those claims, but this kit can store them without having to fold them in the first place, so hopefully leaky creases won't be an issue either way. The seals don't have a built-in vent, but they have a tab that allows you to lift the seal, vent the chest, then reseal the wound. Its adhesive is designed to reseal multiple times if needed. I've been told the seals with built-in vents sometimes work as designed, but you have to be a lot more careful about how you put them on to make sure the vent is directly over the wound, and the vents can clog with clots or bandages even when you put them on right. Even though these chest seals are small enough to fit in this pack flat, they're still big enough that in a pinch you can cut them in half to make 4 seals. You can also, of course, use them to hold dressings in place on wounds that aren't penetrating the chest. The H&H Thin H emergency bandage is a really cool bandage with a built-in 8-inch by 10-inch dressing and a clever way to provide compression right where you need it. The manufacturer has an excellent video about this bandage, and these are clips from that video showing the components of the Thin H along with how to apply it to a wound. You can see how the H works to focus pressure over the wound as well as a way to both tighten and retain the bandage. With a large pad and 5 feet of wrap, the Thin H can be used to apply pressure to a wound pretty much anywhere on the body. This kit comes with a 50-gram Quick Clot clotting sponge. Quick Clot is a volcanic-based powder that accelerates the blood's natural ability to form clots that stop bleeding. This is new stuff. This isn't the old Quick Clot that burns. They don't make that anymore. This 5x5 sponge is impregnated with that powder, which turns into a super sponge as far as controlling blood loss goes. There's no secret to the Quick Clot sponge. You just use it the same way you'd use an ordinary sponge, which for this size would likely be for deep lacerations or very large open wounds wrapped with compression bandage, or even to help the Thin H bandage do its job. You aren't going to be shoving this sponge into a bullet hole or even a small stab wound. Instead, you're going to use the compressed gauze. After taking it out of the packaging, you bend it back and forth in the middle until you see one of the ends. Then you just pull the gauze out and use it to pack a wound as you've been trained to do. This looks like it can't be a lot of gauze, but once uncompressed, you have 15 feet of material to help you control the bleeding of a wound. Lastly, this kit also comes with a basic compressed bandage. This can be used in conjunction with a Quick Clot sponge to dress a wound. You can use it to overwrap a tourniquet so it won't snag during transport. This is another one of those products with many uses that are well known, so I'm not going to go through the rest of the list here. There are a few other unused loops here. You got one up here, you've got another one down here for different things. I actually stick a couple of the Quick Clot clotting gauze underneath the sponge. These are the small size that would be useful, not necessarily for a gigantic gaping wound, but for a smaller wound that might still be bleeding a lot. I've got 2 of these so that in conjunction with the other packing material I have, I can get a clotting agent up against the bleeder and then use the other gauze to facilitate with the pressure. So as you see this now, this is how I have mine set up, and I actually always have this in my pocket as a backup tourniquet. I might also end up adding tourniquets, probably a SWAT-T for use on somebody else, onto the sides. It's actually really easy to do. This pack is really well thought out, much more so than I could have imagined before I started playing with it. AR500 Armor runs specials on the QD IFAK all the time. Sometimes it's in conjunction with other products, sometimes it's just the QD IFAK itself. Regardless, what you're going to pay for this is going to be less than what you'd have to pay to get the individual items and put this kit together yourself. As always, if you use the link in the video description and code TWANGnBANG, you can save up to 10% off the QD IFAK or anything you buy from AR500 Armor. Be sure to sign up for my email list at twangnbang.net/signup. It's the only surefire way to stay in touch with me no matter what happens to gun content on social media. I really appreciate you watching Twang and Bang, and I hope to see you next time.